If you would walk around or drive around in the Netherlands, you will notice there are so many types of houses here, right? I think in most Western countries it is the case, but in the Netherlands you will also find all types of houses. So this lesson is about which types of houses can you find in the Netherlands and how are they called. Hallo lieve vrienden. So a house in Dutch is een huis. And the article is het. So the house is het huis. And please remember from the lesson about how to apply adjectives, it is het huis, which means if I would say the big house, that is het grote huis. But if you would say that is a big house, then you will say dat is een groot huis. Right? So please check that lesson about articles that determine how to apply the adjective. So back to houses. There's a house, but there's also a word that says it is a house to live in, right? And that is what we call woning. So you can use both words. So the word shortage of houses to live in is in Dutch woningtekort. So woning is that word, a house that you live in. And if you are saying, I live in a house, the English word live is also to be alive, right? But we have a specific word for that in Dutch, and that is wonen. That's the verb wonen. So if I would say, I live in this house, it is ik woon in dit huis. I live in Amsterdam, ik woon in Amsterdam. Okay, to the houses then. There are so many types. So let's just start with a random one. In English, we know it as a terraced house. So that is in Dutch een rijtjeshuis. So rij means next to each other. If I would say we are standing in a row, in a line, I would say we staan in een rij. So that is what this word is about, rijtjeshuis. There are a bunch of houses that are linked together in one big building, but they are houses with several levels. And there are also words for which of these houses in these lines of houses are yours. For instance, if I would be in one of these houses with neighbors on both sides, then I would have een tussenwoning. So that means in English literally an in-between house. I'm in between two neighbors. And if you have the one at the end of the block, then that would be a corner house, that is een hoekwoning. There's also another word for this type of house, and that is eengezinswoning. And that means a house for a family, right? So eengezins means one family house, right? Eengezinswoning. So that is usually a house with 2 or 3 layers, right? And there's also a special kind that you can only find in some of the historic cities in the Netherlands. That is like Amsterdam, Utrecht, Nijmegen. You will find herenhuizen. So if I would say I live in that kind of house, ik woon in een herenhuis. And that is usually a really old style house with really high ceilings, right? And the house looks very chic, and it was for the rich people in those days, right? So really high buildings with one house, that is herenhuis. And heren means gentleman, right? Gentleman in plural, because in single it would be heer. Then another type of house that is vrijstaand huis, and that is a house that is not linked to other houses, right? So vrij means free, staand means standing, a free standing house. So there are several types. You have a villa, that is a villa, which is usually 2 or 3 layered with a garden around it, right? Lots of green. And there is also a type of villa that is really large, a bit larger, and has more green around it. That is what we usually call landhuis. So that is a nice and large landhuis. Dat is een mooi groot landhuis. And if it would be a freestanding house, with just one layer, then it would be bungalow, which is also an English word. Then let's go to the apartments, right? There are all sorts of apartments, right? So that is what we call appartement. Ik woon in een appartement. And usually an apartment is in a flat, right? So that is, the definition of that is it's a building with several or multiple living spaces, right? So there are types of apartments. Studio, that is a one-room apartment. There's also maisonnette, that's a French word, and maisonnette is inside a flat but has several layers. So you have a staircase inside that house. And if you live on the top floor of a flat, then you can call that bovenwoning. So that is, boven means above, right? And if it's a large one, then it's a penthouse, right? That's also an English word. And if you live at the bottom layer of a flat, then that is benedenwoning. So beneden means down or downstairs. The apartments are in a large building, right? So we often call that appartementencomplex. So that is the entire building with the apartments in it. And there are also types of that. So we have galerijflat. So galerij, that is like a corridor on the outside, on the front side of the flat building, right? So if you leave your house and you open your door, then you're on a corridor outside, right? And that runs along all the other front doors of the other neighbors, right? So that is een galerij. And if you have like that corridor at the inside of the building, so not in front where you stand outside, but inside, then it's called een corridorflat. There's also another type of flat that is portiekflat, and that is that you are sharing the front door to the building with your neighbors, right? So there is one front door for maybe 6 houses, right? Where you go through and then you have a staircase to each of the apartments. So that is portiekflat. And finally, a type of house that you will find in the Netherlands is called twee onder één kap. That means two underneath one cap, one hood, right? Or one roof, you could say. So that means that there are two separate living spaces for two separate families. But if you look at the building from a distance, it seems like that it's one house, right? But if you look closer, you can see there are two front doors. And because there are two living spaces in the same building, that looks like a single home. So these are the types of houses that you will find in the Netherlands. Did I leave some out? Please let me know in the comments. Can you say yourself in which type of house you live? In Dutch, of course. Please share with us to practice. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next lesson.